sort of start today. We're going to use the bulk of the time for you all to work in your program planning groups on the evaluation assignment to see if you can get, you know, a good start on that before it's due next week. So I have a few slides that I'm going to start by sharing, and then we will go from there. So give me just a second here. Okay, can you all see my slides? Okay, so some announcements, updates. One thing I want to review with you all today is the participation grades. Some of you have reached out and I appreciate that because it was not very clear. So I have attempted to clarify that. We're going to walk through it today, but I want to spend a few minutes on that because you know, there's like these mini assignments that are counting toward your participation points. And so I've tried to clarify it in there, but I want to walk us through it. We'll review the evaluation assignment, answer any questions that you might have. And then we're going to, like I said, use the bulk of today as sort of a working day. The plan for Thursday, I think we'll spend about half the time doing a whole group or a whole class wrap up of the semester, and we'll do an activity related to that. And then we'll also spend the other half of the time in some breakouts with others, and you will sort of informally share about your project that you've been working on. And then the other thing that I mentioned, I know I mentioned this last week, that the thing I usually love to do in class is to do our final class period over milk and cookies. And last week I said, you know, I know we can't do that. But then I was brainstorming with Ray, and for those of you that are here, I think we could do that. So in the exit ticket today, which we'll put in the chat sooner than normal, there's a question about whether you're in Fort Collins and would like to come pick up some milk and cookies on Thursday morning, so that we can do that together in class. So if you will please fill that out. There's also a question that if you are in Fort Collins but don't have transportation, but you would like milk and cookies, to also fill that out so that we can figure out how to deliver you some milk and cookies on Thursday. So please, 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 if you don't mind filling out the exit ticket, we'll put that in the chat here shortly. The other question that's in there is, I realized I don't think either day last week I remembered to do an exit ticket. So I'm particularly interested today in any of your thoughts and perspectives from last week's class periods. So if you'll remember, last week we did a class period on community-based participatory research and partnerships, and then we had the evaluation topic. So if you would give me any thoughts or feedback that you have on that, that would be great. I'm just going to check the chat and make sure. Estordo, thank you for putting that into the chat. And thanks to those of you who are mentioning that you could help deliver. I appreciate that as well. Okay, so let's see. The other thing I want to just talk through, just a couple more details for Thursday. So this is what's written in Canvas for Thursday, but I just want to mention it also real quick. So if you would come to class having kind of thought through or jotted down some notes on what some of the most important concepts or topics that you feel like we've covered are for you, that will kind of help inform the activity that we're going to do in class. And then, like I said, these really short, informal sharing out about your program plans. So I have a couple things in here, right? You could do sort of an overview of the steps that you proposed in the community assessment, how you arrived at whatever the sort of solution is that you're coming up with. These are not, there's no grading about this, right? These are just some general ideas of things that you might describe to one another. So I think we'll probably have maybe 3-ish groups in each of the breakout rooms, and you'll spend 5 or so minutes kind of sharing, and then another 5 or so minutes discussing each of your programs, just so that you get a chance to hear about what a couple other groups have been working on. So that'll be the plan for Thursday. Okay, so then, like I mentioned, I want to talk through the participation grade. So I pulled here from the syllabus the things that were comprising your participation grades. So one was community or in-class and online discussion stuff. One was the community-focused event and write-up, and then one was the Jamboard. And the way I had it broken down in Canvas was the in-class and online stuff was 30 points, the community-focused event was 10, and the Jamboard is 5. And that's where we get the 45 points. But I can see that while it was intended to add up to 30 points, it actually adds up to 35. So you can see the aspects that went into that in-class and online discussion participation. So it was the policing activity, the mid-semester free write, the community level theory discussion board, and then this piece that's coming where you'll do some peer evaluation of your program planning. And that adds up to 35 points. So I think what I'll do is just keep it worth 30, but you could have accumulated 35. So essentially there are 5 extra points in there that you can just have if you want to think about it as extra credit or whatnot, but just as sort of this additional 5 points that exist there. So that's my plan for participation points. Any questions about that? So one other note, in Canvas, you'll see now that because all of the other, all the things listed above, the policing, the mid-semester, the theory discussion, and the peer evaluation, those are all separate assignments, as well as the Jamboard. So now what's listed under participation points is only worth 10 because it's the community-focused event is the only thing that isn't accounted for elsewhere in your grades. Okay, so what questions? Any questions on that before we talk about the evaluation assignment?
So just to be clear, it's Jamboard is an individual grade, community event is an individual grade, and then these are making up the participation grade, correct?
Nope, so Jamboard is an individual grade. In the participation assignment is the community event, which is the 10 points. And then these 4 are all separate mini assignments.
Got it, that makes sense. Thank you.
Is there a form on Canvas for the group eval that we need to fill out this week?
So yeah, so there's not a specific form. I just maybe yesterday created an assignment for you and kind of listed what I'm asking you to do. So it's essentially the way you enter it is just a text box. So you can just text entry the names of your group members and then a sort of participation grade or the number of points between 1 and 10. And then I have sort of a general, very basic rubric of what those points, you know, how to assess that.
Okay.
And then we'll just sort of average everybody that's in your group.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
For the community-focused event, in the description, it's very, very, very short. Are there some specific points that we're supposed to hit with that?
No, I think just sort of reflecting on what you took away from it and how it ties to public health, I think are the primary aspects of that. Okay, well, don't hesitate to reach out if you have other questions or things that come up, whether it's related to participation or anything else in Canvas as we're kind of wrapping up the semester. Okay, so I just wanted to walk us through the evaluation assignment one more time before we break out into some groups. So as a reminder, this one is intended to be less robust, less intensive than the previous one. So the biggest part of that program plan was the last assignment that you did, and this one is now 25 points. So in the previous assignment that you just turned in, you talked about your various groups of stakeholders. Now for this piece, you're going to basically take that list of stakeholders and think about the different kinds of information that each might be interested in. That's the first piece of it. The second piece of this now is thinking about how you'd go about measuring the components of your logic model, right? So last week we talked about how your outcomes are really tied to the logic model and the sort of short, medium, long-term outcomes that you have listed. So thinking about how would you evaluate the pieces that you've included in there. You can feel free at this point if for some reason you go back and you look at your logic model and you think, oh, we didn't quite do that right, or now that it's harder to figure out what the outcome is. You are welcome to shift things for this assignment to say, this is what we had, but as we're thinking through this now with evaluation more in mind, this might need to shift, and that's totally fine. So thinking about potential methods you might use, right? What are some of the important considerations for collecting evaluation information? How are folks that are impacted by the program involved in the process? And then thinking about, like we talked about on Thursday, this notion of more liberatory evaluation. So what might it look like to think about this process of trying to be more liberatory in the way we think about evaluation? And then the last piece, the last 5 points, is thinking about what potential challenges you might face in the evaluation specifically. So what questions, I'll stop sharing and answer any questions that you might have about the evaluation assignment. And then from there, we'll break out and I'll stay in the main room, happy to bounce around to groups and answer questions or brainstorm with you all while you're working on your evaluation assignments. No questions yet? Okay, Estrada, how are you doing on creating groups? Do you need a few more minutes or?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, so if you all would quickly, before we press that button, click on the exit ticket so that you can either fill it out real quick or just have it open so you can fill it out at the end of class. And then just pop back into the main room or hit that button that asks for help, and I'll come join your rooms. And then otherwise, I'll see you all on Thursday.